If you want to bring me a flash drive, I can save that for you, or once I'm done with chapter 1 next week, then I'll burn DVDs. So homework day 10 says a copy machine makes 32 copies per minute. How long does it take to make 152 copies? Now on these ones, you either end up multiplying or dividing, but sometimes people have a hard time trying to figure out, should I multiply or should I divide to solve it? So one thing you can do if you are having trouble trying to decide if I should multiply or divide is set up a proportion. I have 32 copies per minute, which means in 1 minute. That's my given rate, 32 copies per minute. We want to know how long does it take to make 152 copies. Since my copies are on top here, I would have to put the 152 copies on top here. And we want to know how long, how many minutes is that going to take us. So if we cross multiplied, we would have 32 times x. 32x equals 1 times 152. And we can see, oh, yep, we do. We end up dividing by that 32. Now, when you divide that by 32, what do you get? 4.75. Our problem here will be, it's not just going to ask how many minutes. It's going to ask for the number of minutes and the number of seconds. So, the 4 in front is the 4 minutes. 4 minutes or 4.75 minutes. So 4 minutes. What you need to do is change the 0.75 into how many seconds. So you think about how many seconds are there in a minute? How many seconds are in a minute? 60. If you take that 0.75 times 60, you get what? 45. So that's one way you can do it. What I like to do is if I think of a clock in 60 seconds, each 0.25 is a fourth, right? So I think about my clock, and this is 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, because I'd have 1/4, 2/4, which is 1/2, 3/4, there's my 0.75. 0.75 is the same as 3/4, so 45 minutes. Number 2 says a car travels at an average speed of 52 miles per hour. How many miles does it travel in 3 hours and 15 minutes? So again, if I set up a proportion, I'd say 52 miles in 1 hour. How many miles in 3 hours and 15 minutes? Now again, the 3 hours and 15 minutes I have to change to a decimal. 15 minutes ends up being 0.25, or I take 15 divided by that 60, because there's how many seconds are in a minute. So 3 hours and 15 minutes is 3.25 if I'm changing it to a decimal. And then I can see here, oh, I end up just multiplying those numbers together. 1 times x is x. 52 times 3.25 is 169. So it's going to take me 160, or I'm going to go 169 miles in 3 hours and 15 minutes. The car travels at an average speed of 48 miles per hour. How long does it take to travel 276 miles? So do you think you should multiply or divide to solve that one? I'm going to end up dividing, right? So I'm going to end up taking 276 divided by 48. And if we take 276 divided by 48, we get 5.75. So 5 hours and 45 minutes, because again, 0.75 is 3/4 of an hour, which is 45 minutes, or multiplied by 60. The next one, we're getting into all those rectangle problems with perimeter and area. Perimeter, again, the formula, 2 lengths plus 2 widths. Area, my formula, length times width. So the perimeter of my rectangular field is 298 yards. If the length of the field is 85, what is its width? So using my formula for perimeter, 298 yards would equal 2 times my length of 85 plus 2 times my width, which I don't know. And then I'm going to solve that. Now if I'm going to solve this, first thing I need to do is multiply my 2 times my 85. 2 times 85 would be 170 plus 2W then. If I want to solve that for W, the next thing I should do is minus my 170, right? Got to move that over to the other side. So 298 minus 170. Looks like it'd be 128, right? And then I'm going to divide by 2. 128 divided by 2 gives me 64. So that if I had my rectangle and my lengths were 85 and my widths were 64, I should be able to add up all the sides and it should end up being 298 all the way around, right? The next one says we have a perimeter of a square painting. When we have a square, our lengths and our widths are the same thing. I have 4 sides, so they tell me that the perimeter of the square is 4 times the length of one of my sides because they're all the same. So if my square painting is 272 centimeters and I want to find how long each side is, all I have to do is what? Divide by that 4, right? And so if you take 272 divided by 4, you get Kenny's doing it all on his paper. He doesn't have his calculator. What was it, Amy? 88? Did you say? 68? I can't hear you're way back there. 68. They'll probably make me put centimeters on that. Who knows? 68 centimeters. Number 6 is the area of my rectangular field. So again, my area is length times width. So my area is 8,811 yards. Squared is just my label, so I don't worry about that. I want to find the length if I know the width is 89. If I'm going to solve that for my length, all I'm going to do is divide, right? I got to move the multiplying over, so I'm going to divide by 89. So if I have the area and I'm trying to find one of my sides, all I end up doing is dividing. So 8,811 divided by 89. What did you say? 99? So 99 yards. It's going to be my answer. Number 7, still talking about perimeter, and we know that we have some special formulas for perimeter, and sometimes we just have to add up all the sides for perimeter. So it says the perimeter of my rectangle below is 132 units. I happen to have a rectangle, so I know that the perimeter is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So 132 is going to equal 2 times my length. Now, it really doesn't matter which one you call the length and the width. Generally, the longer side is the length and the shorter side is the width. So I'm going to put 2 times 5y plus 2 times 4y plus 3. Be the same thing as if I labeled all of these and added up all of my sides, right? So 132 is going to equal 2 times 5y, which is 10y. 2 times 4y would be 8y, and 2 times 3 would be 6. So combining my like terms, 10y plus 8y is going to give me 18y. So 132 equals 18y plus 6. And in order to solve that, we would subtract our 6. If we subtract our 6, we get, I think I heard you say 126. 126 equals 18y, and then we're going to divide. If I divide by 18, I get 7. Now, sometimes it will just say find y, but sometimes they want you to find the length of a side. I evidently don't know how to type. I need to fix that, but I'm supposed to find the length of the side PS. PS is this side labeled 5y. So to answer the question, we have to take 5 times 7, because y was 7, and we would end up with 35 for the answer to this question. Fix my paper while I'm thinking about it. There, we could say find instead of fid. Number 8, didn't give you much room to write there. We have a quadrilateral. In this case, we're just going to add up all the sides because they're not the same on any of the sides. So we're just going to say 5 plus 4y plus y plus 2 plus 5y minus 3 equals my 64, which is my perimeter. So if I combine my like terms, 4y plus 5y plus 1y would give me 10y. And then we have 5 plus 2, which is 7. 7 minus 3 would be plus 4. Equals my 64. Now I have my equation. In order to solve that, I'm going to subtract my 4. 10y equals 60. And then divide by 10, so y equals 6. In this one, it does say find the value of y, so once I find y is 6, that's the answer I'm going to put in. Number 9, the perimeter of my triangle is 64 units. Find the length of side VX. Write your answer without variables. So again, since I have a triangle, I'm just going to add up my sides in order to find the perimeter. 3y plus y plus 1 plus 2y plus 3 equals 64. And so when I combine my like terms, I'm going to get 6y plus 4. Man, that looks pretty close to the other one. Equals 64. We're going to subtract our 4, so 6y equals 60, and then divide by 6, and so y equals 10. Now in this one, it didn't tell us to find y, it told us to find VW, or VX, I should read the right thing, VX. So VX is this side right here, that is labeled 3y, so we're going to take 3 times 10, and our answer is going to be 30. Now these are the ones people kind of have some trouble with if they're going to have trouble with any of the things we just did. We're finding the perimeter or area of a rectangle given one of the values. It says the length of my rectangle is 4 yards longer than its width. So I'm going to start and I'm going to have my rectangle. And we're not going to know what the width is, so I'm going to label the width W. I'm then going to write the length in terms of the width. The length is 4 yards longer than its width. If I'm longer than something, what am I going to do? Should I add, subtract, multiply, or divide? 4 yards longer. I'm going to add, right? So I'm going to label this side as W plus 4. Now it tells me my perimeter is 40. So just like on those previous problems, perimeter is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So 40 is going to equal 2 times, and in for my length, I'm going to use the W plus 4 plus my 2 widths. And then I'm going to solve that for W. So 40 is going to equal 2W plus 8 plus 2W, using my distributive property. Combining my like terms, 40 is going to equal 4W plus 8. And then I have to solve that for W, so I'm going to minus my 8. 32 equals 4W, and divide by 4. So I know my width is 8. So then what I'm going to do after I find my width is I'm going to go back to my rectangle and say, okay, my width is 8. My length was 8 plus 4, so it's going to be 12. The question is going to ask me for the other thing. I had perimeter, so I'm going to do the opposite thing, find the area. Area is length times width. The length of my rectangle is 12. The width of my rectangle is 8. So I'm going to take 12 times 8 in order to find the answer. 12 times 8 is 96. And since it's area, I'm going to have square units for my label. So 96 yards squared is going to be my answer. So they get kind of long because there's 2 parts that we have to figure out. So number 11 says the length of my rectangle is 5 times my width. So again, I'm going to start with my rectangle. I don't know the width, and I'm going to label the length. How am I going to show the length? The length of my rectangle is 5W. 5 times the width, so 5W. Again, it's telling me the perimeter. My perimeter is 84. I know that the formula for perimeter is to take 2 times my length of 5W plus 2 times my width, which is just a plain W. So solving that, 2 times 5W is 10W, and 10W plus 2W is 12W. So 84 is going to equal 12W. In order to solve that for W, I'm going to divide by 12. And W is going to be 7. So I know my width is 7. I'm going to go ahead and label that over here. My width equals 7. What is my length going to be? 35. 5 times 7, right? And again, it says find my area. Area is length times width, so 35 times 7 is going to be my problem. Five times 7 gave me 245, and if this is in inches, so 245 inches squared, since it's an area. So both of these, they gave you the perimeter first, like we had on the previous problems, told you to find the area when you're done. The third one will give you the area first. We have to solve that one a little bit differently. But I'm going to start it the same way. Here's my rectangle. I'm not going to know the width, but I'm going to label the length. The length of my rectangle is 3 times my width. So for the length, we're going to write 3W. Now we're starting with area. Area is length times width. So 108 is equal to my length, which is 3W, times my width, which is W. So 108 equals 3W times W. And a 3W times a 1W would be 3 3W times W is,
4W.
nope, that'd be adding them.
Wait, what?
What was it? 3W squared. A W times another W is a W squared, right? So 3W times W is 3W squared. In order to solve that, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that coefficient, so we're going to divide by the 3. 108 divided by 3 gives me 36. So 36 is equal to W squared. Technically, to solve that, we're doing the opposite of squaring. What's the opposite of squaring? Taking the square root of something. So what I'm going to do is take the square root of 36 in order to find what W is. The square root of 36 is 6, right? If 36 is equal to something squared, it has to be 6 squared that's equal to 36. So once I find my width, I'm going to go back to my rectangle and label my sides. My width is 6. My length is going to be 3 times 6, which is 18. Now it's going to ask for perimeter. The perimeter is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So 2 times 18 plus 2 times 6. 2 times 18 is 36. 2 times 6 is 12. And 36 plus 12, 48. Since this is perimeter, it's in just a plain unit. So since my area was meters squared, my perimeter is just in plain meters. So those are probably the 3 ways you're going to see that kind of problem. They're a little bit tricky. They probably will take you some work. Thus, we only have 4 problems to do in this next section. Alrighty.